Now that we finally got the arcade collaboration event in mobile, some of the most anticipated Fate Grand Order arcade exclusive servants are finally here in the game for everyone to use. From Draco to Setanta to, of course, my personal favorite, Tiamat. We can finally put to rest the damn you arcade memes, the Onore arcade memes. Well, I mean, we're still missing Jacques de Molay, we're still missing Sita, of course, and some of the costumes in arcade would be nice, like the Battle of New York Gilgamesh would be cool, I guess, and I guess the color palette stuff would be pretty cool to see in mobile. I don't know, customizations are always nice, but other than those things that, now that I say that, I really do want, for the most part, we could say goodbye to those arcade memes. With all that said, I wanted to compare some of the arcade servants to their mobile counterparts to see which one is better portrayed. In other words, I want to see which art style, which ascensions I personally prefer, and you guys could type in the comments down below and let me know what you think and which ascensions you guys prefer, the ones in arcade or the ones in mobile. Now real quick, I just want to say I'm not going to be comparing Da Vinci Lily arcade to Da Vinci Lily in mobile because they're pretty similar as it is, and Nemo and Noah, even though they look similar as well, like they're completely different heroic spirits altogether, so not gonna be comparing those two. Otherwise, again, comment down below, let me know your opinions, and of course like the video if you want to see more videos like this one. Now I know I said I wasn't gonna be comparing Da Vinci Lily to the other Da Vinci Lily in mobile and, you know, Nemo to Noah, but I think I would be remiss if I did not compare Jacques de Molay Saber to Jacques de Molay Foreigner, who I understand from a lore perspective are pretty much completely different individuals, completely different servants. But I remember when Foreigner Jacques de Molay came out in mobile, like weeks or even months after Saber Jacques de Molay debuted in arcade, people were losing their minds. And to be honest, for understandable reasons, because a lot of people want to see more husbandos, they want to see more hot guys. So to take a male servant that literally just debuted in the Fate series in general, put them into the mobile game, and then totally change their entire character, their entire design, their entire gender, I can see why that could piss some people off. I could see that. But just looking purely at their designs, their ascensions, even though they're both designed by the same designer, by the same artist, I already know some people are going to call me biased, but I think I prefer the Foreigner version a lot more to the Saber version. And I already know what people are thinking. Oh, it's because she got titties, it's because she got ass. Okay, I'm not gonna lie, part of it probably has something to do with that. I'm not gonna lie. But hear me out for a second. Look at Saber Jacques de Molay's ascensions. From Ascension 1 to Ascension 2 to Ascension 3. You know, there are differences. There is an evolution of the design as he ascends. But I feel like there isn't that much of a variation. Like he removes his hood and his shield and gets a bit more, I guess, complicated, complex. And then he gets like a shoulder armor thing. Which is cool. I'm not gonna lie. It's cool when you compare his ascensions directly to Foreigner Jacques de Molay and you see how different they get with each ascension. I don't know, I think it's a no contest. When it comes to modern servants from the past 3 years, I like to see a clear difference, a clear evolution with each given ascension. It's kind of like Pokemon. When you see a Pokemon evolve, you want to see them actually evolve, become different, change. And I feel like with Saber Jacques de Molay, there just isn't that much of a difference in terms of his ascensions, whereas Foreigner Jacques de Molay, there is a clear-cut difference and clear-cut evolution. And I understand lore-wise, Saber Jacques de Molay doesn't have like the outer god manipulating his body, so I guess there isn't that much material to work with, as opposed to Foreigner Jacques de Molay, who's again being manipulated and being used by an outer god. So I don't know, just looking purely at the ascensions, I would have to say I do prefer the creativity that the Foreigner version has over the Saber version. Even looking at the final ascensions, and again, these are by the same designer, the same artist, I just feel like the Foreigner version is just a bit more dynamic. There's a lot more going on. She's actually posing, whereas I feel like the Saber Jacques de Molay is, you know, he just kind of turned around a little bit and he's like coughing to himself. Like there's not much going on. But again, comment down below and let me know what you guys think. Again, I'm not saying the Saber one has a horrible design. I just feel like his design fits more of a like a 4-star vibe, not really a 5-star vibe. And I would even go as far as saying like he feels like and looks like a free servant, and free servants typically don't change with each ascension. And I feel like with him, because there's so little change, he could get away as a free 4-star in my mind. I don't know. I think overall mobile wins with Jacques de Molay. Moving on to one of the more popular arcade exclusive servants, if not possibly arguably the most popular arcade servant, Proto Merlin, or as she goes by in mobile, Lady Avalon. Now, let me just say, the arcade version is a caster, whereas the mobile version is a pretender class. But unlike the case with Jacques de Molay, the similarities between these two servants, these two variations of the same heroic spirit, are pretty minimal for the most part. Like, the poses are similar, the outfits are similar. Granted, in the first ascension of arcade, she does have her hood on, but second ascension, pretty much identical to the first ascension of mobile. Like, there's a couple of differences with the pose, with her legs, and then the clothes is slightly different as well. But, you know, if you squint your eyes, you're not going to notice really any differences at all. Where things get really different with the mobile version of Proto Merlin is the fact that they decided to introduce her into the mobile game as a summer servant, which is the first time they've ever done something like that. They introduced a brand new character, but as a summer character, which again, they've never done that in like the 6-7 years that this game has been around when Proto Merlin came out in mobile. And while I do like Lady Avalon's swimsuit and her design, it did rub me the wrong way, and it rubbed a lot of people the wrong way to release her along with 2 other 5-star summer servants. Again, something else they haven't ever done is release 3 summer servants at once, or I should say 3 5-star summer servants at once. I don't know, I just felt like they were getting kind of like money hungry with it and getting a little bit selfish. They were like, hey, listen, let's go release these 2 very popular characters as summer servants, and then also release probably the most popular arcade servant as a summer servant. It was kind of messed up. Otherwise, the arcade version of Proto Merlin pretty much follows the same, I guess you could say, the same template as normal Merlin, where she just has different variations of the same outfit, whereas Lady Avalon just completely changes her clothes. But by the time they reach the 3rd ascension, they are completely, or not completely, but like very different servants. And I feel like this is going to contradict what I said earlier about Jacques de Molay and how I like to see an evolution with each consecutive ascension. But when it comes to these 2 Proto Merlins, I have to say I think I prefer the arcade version. But I just like the parallels that Proto Merlin has with normal Merlin, where normal Merlin has his hood on first ascension, so does Proto Merlin, and then as they ascend, they get a bit more, I guess, complex with their design. Again, I don't know if that contradicts what I said earlier about Jacques de Molay's design, but that's how I feel right now when it comes to comparing Proto Merlin with Lady Avalon. I think I prefer Proto Merlin arcade more. Even in terms of final ascension, I think I prefer the arcade version over the mobile version. I think, again, it's the same artist, I'm pretty sure, same artist between the 2. I just think the arcade version has a lot more contrast. She pops out a bit more, whereas in the mobile version there's just a lot of white going on, and I feel like the black in her arms stand out a bit too much. I don't know, maybe I'm being a bit too critical and a bit too, you know, biased, because again, I'm a bit salty. Again, let me know what you guys think. I'm sure some of you horny bastards will just pick the summer Lady Avalon just because she's in a swimsuit. Now, moving on to my personal favorite, the one servant I was waiting for even before arcade was even a thing, before it was even an idea. Back in 2016, when the Singularity first dropped and we fought Tiamat, I thought to myself, are we ever gonna get Tiamat as a servant? Many people wanted her as a servant, especially after watching the anime years later and getting to know more of her character, and the fact that she's voiced by Aoyuki, who also voices Shuten, Okita, Janako, just to name a few. Some of the fan favorites in the Fate series. Me, along with many others, were just anticipating Tiamat's arrival as a playable servant in the mobile game. And when she was released in arcade, I'm not gonna lie, a part of me broke. I was like, fuck, is she gonna be exclusive to arcade? But then as the years went by and more signs of an arcade collaboration was beyond the horizon, there was hope that our mother will finally be introduced to the mobile game. And lo and behold, not too long ago, they officially announced her as the pre-campaign banner for the arcade event, which, I mean, I don't know why they made her pre-campaign. I feel like she should have been the main servant, but that's me being biased. Either way, Tiamat, who, as you guys can see, her first ascension in arcade and the mobile game are pretty much the same, and it's the same thing with the second ascension. Where things get different is the third ascension and the final ascension, and this is where I might lose some of you guys if I haven't lost you already with my hot takes or my opinions. Looking at both of the third ascensions between arcade and mobile, I will say that I strongly prefer the mobile version over the arcade version. I understand that the arcade version gives more mother vibes, more motherly, mommy vibes. But I'm not gonna lie, when that Ascension was revealed a couple years back, when Tiamat was first introduced in arcade, while I did like it, I was like, if she does come to mobile, I would like it if she would get an Ascension that better represents how she looked like in Babylonia when we first met her, when we first fought her. And thank God my prayers were heard, because when Tiamat finally dropped for the mobile game a couple weeks ago, her third Ascension is not only different from the arcade third Ascension, but it better closely resembles how she looked like back in Babylonia. And just for reference, for those of you guys who don't remember how she looked like in Babylonia, as you guys could see, it's the same artist, but there are slight differences, like her horns are a bit more detailed in her first beast debut in Babylonia, and she does have her arms bound and her legs bound as well, whereas in the mobile game, or I should say the mobile game, in her playable alter ego version, her legs and arms aren't bound, and her mommy milkers are not covered by arms. They're covered by actual straps of fabric, I would assume. And she does look a lot thicker as well in her alter ego stuff. I don't know if that was intentional or, you know, it was just a change in art style. I don't know. But otherwise, her mobile alter ego version does resemble her original design a lot more. Again, nothing wrong with the arcade Ascension. Maybe if they release that as costume, I'd be pretty happy. But between the two, it's like no contest for me. I really, really like the OG look of Tiamat. That said, looking at the final Ascensions, a little bit trickier for me, because they are pretty much wearing the exact same outfit that resembles her beast form from Babylonia, with the exception of what is covering her mommy milkers. And ironically enough, I think I do prefer the arcade final Ascension a lot more. Don't get me wrong, the mobile version is nice and it is a bit wholesome because it looks like we're having a drink with our mother, but I think that's what kind of throws me off a bit. She's wearing her Babylonia outfit and she's in her primal state pretty much, and she's having a cup of, I don't even know what that is. I think those are like marshmallows or hot cocoa or something. I'm not sure. It just stands out too much, you know what I mean? Like I get what they were going for. They want to go with those motherly vibes. But I think just seeing her in her habitat holding a flower, I don't know. I think I like that a bit more than I do with her sitting down in like a modern home or something, sipping on cocoa or with us. I don't know. It just stands out a bit much. I think they were a little bit too on the nose with the whole motherly vibes, whereas I think this one's a lot more subtle and just, you know, we could just appreciate her beauty. That's all. But I think overall, looking at the Ascensions and the final Ascension, I think mobile does win a little bit just because of that third Ascension. Moving on to the welfare servant Setanta, who in terms of overall design is pretty much the same across both games and has only one Ascension because he's a freebie in both games. So if we're just looking at the art, I will say I think the mobile game is a little bit better. In fact, I think the arcade game, look at the dog. The dog looks pissed off to be in arcade, like, damn, I don't want to be here. But in the mobile game, like, he's really happy to be here. So I think that kind of encompasses most people's feelings about arcade versus mobile. Like, yeah, that's cool. Like, they look nice, but I would love to see them in arcade. And I think the mobile version of Setanta just encompasses everyone's feelings. And I think that's why I probably prefer the mobile version over the arcade version. And they're both nice. Again, I gotta reiterate that with literally every other servant as well. Like, all these arts, all these designs look great. It's just I prefer, in this case, the mobile version over the arcade version. Looking at the final sections for a quick second, I think overall I do like the arcade version just because we could see OG Ku in the background, and I believe in the mirror looking back at his younger self. I don't know. I like stuff like that, and not too many servants do stuff like that where you could see a reference to maybe a future version or a reference to another servant or another character. Again, not too many servants do that, and I like it when they do that. And I feel like in the mobile game, while it looks nice, there really isn't much else to look at besides him, whereas in the arcade version, you could look at the background, you see OG Ku, you could see Setanta, you could see the dog asleep being cute as hell. So I don't know, there's a lot more going on in the arcade game where I think I prefer the final art with Setanta in this case in arcade. Now this is where things get really spicy, because essentially what inspired me to do this video in the first place was seeing everyone's reaction, everyone's divisive opinions on the third ascension of Draco in mobile. Now keep in mind, Draco was a free servant in arcade, so she doesn't have any more ascensions outside of her final ascension and her first ascension. Whereas in the mobile game, they decided to not only introduce her as a beast, but decide to introduce her as a servant with different ascension arts. So I will be comparing her third ascension in mobile to her boss version in arcade, which is different than every other servant in this list so far. I personally don't think it's a fair comparison, but because everyone is so riled up about it and like debating which one's better, the beast Draco in arcade or this third ascension Draco that we got in mobile, again, I'm gonna leave it up to you guys in the comments to decide. But looking at the first ascensions of Draco in both arcade and mobile, again, arcade, she only has this one ascension aside from her final art. In the mobile game, she has this as her first ascension, where she has like a really big dress, kind of look like a traffic cone almost, and then she does sport the normal, I guess, outfit she has in arcade. So pretty much the same design across both versions here. Now let's go look at B6's design from arcade and compare it to Draco's third ascension in mobile. As you can see, they are completely different. And let me just say this right now. I'm sure some of you guys already know this, but some of you guys may not. B6's design is not drawn or designed by Wada Arco. If you guys don't know who Wada Arco is, she's the designer for most of the Fate Extra servants, if not all the Fate Extra servants, and of course Nero herself. And she did design Draco's first ascension, but for some reason they decided to make it so B6's design is not designed by Wada Arco, but is rather designed by the same person who did Tiamat and Goetia. So just keep that in mind. And I don't want this to become a who's better, this artist or that artist. No, they're both talented artists, very different art styles. So I don't want that to become a debate. Although there is a craft essence in arcade that Wada Arco did design that does feature B6's design. So if you want to compare these two instead, you very well can. But just looking at these two, I saw a lot of people disappointed and sad. Not everyone. Again, it's very divisive. I could see one side and the other. If Draco's third ascension met expectations, if it's good, if it's better, if it's worse than the original B6's design. And in my opinion, and I saw some people share the same opinion across different forums and different websites, to me and some other people, it's unrealistic to want the original beast design to become the playable servant, if that makes sense. Like if we look at Kiara, Beast Kiara, looks similar, but is ultimately different to how she is in her playable form. Same thing with Kama, and to a certain extent Tiamat. Like Tiamat is like as close as we got to the original beast design, but it's still pretty different. In this case though, the argument could be made that it's completely different. Like there's pretty much no resemblance between the two designs. Like there's little to no like at all. Like we know it's Nero because that's what the game told us and we could read and whatnot. But if I showed these two designs to someone who isn't really familiar with Fate, they probably would not assume right away that these two characters are the same exact person. They'd probably assume at best that they might be related. So I could see from a standpoint of why someone would get disappointed, because maybe they really like the B6's design, and to get something completely different that makes no reference to the original B6's design, I could see that being kind of a disappointment. But again, I've been playing this game for like 8 years already, so I kind of expect the original beast designs to never become playable, and the same goes for like arcade servants as well. As far as which one I prefer though, so it's pretty close for me, because I do like how much the B6 original design plays up on the whole lore of her being Sodom's beast, so she has to look the way she does, right? At the same time, again, in my opinion, I like the thought and details that go into Draco's third ascension. It's not just here's my skin, look how nude I am, look how curvy I am, and just straight fan service, you know what I mean? Like they're both sexy designs, right? But one is a lot more modest, and I think in some cases, not all cases, I do prefer a much more modest look. And I don't know, Draco's third ascension just hits me in the right spots. So it's really hard for me to decide which one I prefer. Like I don't hate either one of them, I don't dislike either one of them. Like they're both really good. I think I will go with Draco's third ascension over Beast 6, just because I think it's nice to see a female servant that isn't over sexualized, if that makes sense. And I don't want to get on my high horse or anything like that. I like women as much as the next guy, right? You know what I mean? But every now and then Grand Order likes to hit us with these servants that look really good and in their own way very sexy without showing too much skin. Like, I know a lot of people are making comparisons between Draco's third ascension with Avenger Nobunaga's third ascension. They're similar in the sense that they're covering a lot of their skin. They're really not showing much besides their head. But there's something that just tickles certain people's fancy. Like, I think that's how I feel with Draco's third ascension. Again, I don't know if that's a hot take. From what I've seen, it's pretty divided. Like, a lot of people are disappointed, but at the same time, a lot of people are pleasantly surprised. And I think that's where I lean towards the most. Like, I was wholly expecting the B6's, you know, voluptuous ascension to become the playable mobile Draco third ascension. But when I saw the design that Water Arco decided to go for instead, I was surprised, but pleasantly surprised, you know what I mean? And then moving into the final art, again, the final art in arcade is for the free servant that they got over there, not for B6. Again, they're completely separate entities in arcade. But looking at the two final ascensions, I think it's no contest for me. Again, I think the mobile game is a bit better. So correct me if I'm wrong. I think overall, I think mobile won this video. All of Arcade's designs are really good, and some of them I do prefer over others, but I think overall I do prefer a lot more of the Ascensions and the final art in mobile over Arcade. It is what it is. I'm sure everyone has their own different opinion. Maybe some of you guys share the same opinions as me. So comment down below, let me know what you think about this entire video, your opinions on Arcade versus mobile in terms of the Ascension arts and the final art. Was this Fate Grand Order collaboration event a hit, or was it a miss? Was it an L? Was it a W? And of course, like the video if you like it, dislike it if you dislike it, and of course subscribe to become a supporting character to me, the main character, because, you know, without you guys I'd be the only character, and that would quite frankly suck. So I'll see you guys in the next one. Bye bye.